need this, Mrs. Kemp?
Hello everybody, this is Mad Matt. Why is my mouth not moving? Because this effect takes too damn long in post. You're watching Movie Mattness. In the late 1980s, I set out to make an independent film called Flying Fists of Ernie using an old Super 8 camera. It was about a transient who uses general badassery and martial arts to clean up crime in a small Kansas town. I even set the film in my hometown of El Dorado. Yes, that's how we Kansans pronounce it, making the plot about a shipment of cocaine laced with an intense psychotic that drove its numerous users to violence. Around the same time, I saw an independent film called Street Trash, which is kind of like Kurosawa's Dodeskaden as if it had been made by Troma Films. Street Trash pushed the envelope of violence, even going so far as to show a man's penis getting ripped from his body and then two bums playing keep-away with it. Naturally, being a heavy-drinking, angry young college student, I decided I needed a similar repulsive act of violence in my own film. So I opened the screenplay with an explicit gang rape, making the victim a pregnant woman and capping off the entire atrocity with, well, you get the idea. It is by the grace of God that I never had the resources to film that scene, instead showing only a snippet of the aftermath. I was something of a pretentious adolescent at the time, which is why this scene comes off like the work of a pretentious adolescent mind. That same adolescent mind may have loved a movie like Hobo with a Shotgun back in the 1980s. Today, however, I'm more of a curmudgeon. Hobo with a Shotgun is about a transient who uses his general badassery in a double-pump shotgun to clean up crime in a not-so-small fictional town. Right away you can see the parallels to Flying Fists of Ernie. Unlike my film, however, director Jason Eisner did not have the same budget constraints, and therefore he was able to go all out with his ultra-violent vision. Unfortunately, Eisner's a greenhorn, something of a fanboy who confuses general lack of restraint with cinematic craft. Nothing wrong with that, I guess. I was there once. But if I could give Jason Eisner any artistic advice based on my years of experience, it would be this. There is nothing inventive about seeing how far you can take violence if your only objective is to show your audience how cool you are. Another extremely violent film, Natural Born Killers, at least has a context and a message, heavy-handed though it is. And although I find that film to be a mess as well, I can at least forgive Oliver Stone for what he was trying to do with the subject matter. Not so with Hobo with a Shotgun, which doesn't seem to have any such context. Of course, younger audience members whose understanding of Grindhouse is limited to Quentin Tarantino might chide me for my reaction to this film. After all, it's freaking Grindhouse. It's supposed to be extreme, and there isn't supposed to be a point to it. I don't buy that argument. Every work of narrative cinema needs to have some point. Even the early X-rated films of the 1970s tried to reach some level of artistic merit, regardless of their inclusion of explicit sex. Pornography was a means of expression back then, not to mention a way to attract investors. But the early adult filmmakers wanted to tell stories that reached an audience beyond the level of sexual arousal. If you don't believe me, check out Sean Costello's Fiona on Fire or Rince Dream's Cafe Flesh sometime. Because of its lack of sexuality, Hobo with a Shotgun is not pornography by definition, but it's certainly pornographic in terms of our expanding understanding of the word. The suffix porn has become part of our lexicon to describe a narrative convention taken to extremes to titillate the audience. For example, movies like Hostel and Saw being labeled as torture porn. By that description, Hobo with a Shotgun might be accurately described as slaughter porn, since like my unfilmed rape scene from Flying Fists of Ernie, it seems to exist solely to depict graphic violence and shove it in our faces, like a child opening its mouth with chewed up food. To get an understanding of where this film wants to go, just look at the opening scene. As the hobo arrives in Hopetown, he witnesses the decapitation of a man named Logan at the hands of the town's kingpin, the Drake, and his two sadistic sons Ivan and Slick. After much screaming and histrionic overacting, Logan is lowered in a manhole with a special manhole cover collared around his neck. Barbed wire is wrapped around his neck, the other end attached to the bumper of a car, and the car speeds off, decapitating the man. A jet of blood sprays from the stump of Logan's neck, and a prostitute dances in its shower. This is daring, yes, but the tragic part is, this is one of the tamer moments of the film. Every violent sequence thereafter, and there are many, seems intent upon one-upping the previous. I don't object to violence in films, no, but even controversial directors like Japan's Miike Takashi know when to turn the camera away. Hobo with a Shotgun's director Jason Eisner hasn't seemed to learn that less is more. That the idea of beating someone with a bat covered in razor blades is more effective than showing that bat actually disembowel someone. Now again, I hear the film's fans going back to the old Grindhouse argument. Let me tell you something about Grindhouse. The films of Grindhouse cinema's golden age were violent, yes, but in the mid-1970s we had reached a point where violence had lost its decorum, where we were asked to understand the consequences of violence, and Grindhouse was actually in the forefront of that movement. Just look at the scene in Wes Craven's Last House on the Left, where after a brutal rape the three villains exchange a moment where they seem to silently question whether or not they've gone too far. That's the kind of heady stuff that lifts that movie above blatant exploitation. Now, if you're into slaughter porn, I doubt I can steer you away from Hobo with a Shotgun, and I do admit there are some nicely staged moments in the movie. But overall, Hobo with a Shotgun simply set with me wrong. I didn't feel anything save disgust. No exhilaration, no connection with the characters, no sense that any of this mattered. For some it's a diversion, for me it's depressing. Enter at your own risk.
All right, we've seen what you can do with a boy. How are you when they come a little bigger?